Okay, hello everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. I don't know if we have anyone good evening, but just to cover all the bases. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Wendy Harris, President and CEO of Catalyste Plus, and it is my great pleasure to be here with you today. Spend some time chatting about what's happening. You will see I've got some of my colleagues here, Natalia, Devin, and Nita, who are working the back end. So thank you guys for that. Bonjour à tous. C'est un plaisir de passer du temps avec vous aujourd'hui. We have a lot to get through today. So why don't we have a peek at the agenda? And so I'll do an update. It'll be about half an hour update. We'll touch on the board of directors, on results of some of our programs. We'll talk recruitment, touch on strategy, and then we'll have lots of time for questions and answers. And the Q&A period, we can function in both English and French. So please, just whichever language you are most comfortable with, and you can see the little Q&A symbol at the bottom. That's where you type in your questions. Okay, so let's talk about our board of directors. So we had our annual general meeting this past September, and we welcomed two new board members, Alana Patterson and Lise Filiatro, and we welcomed back Darren Schemmer as our board director. So very exciting to welcome this new talent to the board. A little bit about Alana and Lise. Alana is a lawyer with executive level experience in negotiations, human resources, government relations, and corporate governance. And she is from the East Coast. Lise Filiatro has 35 years in international management experience in Africa, the Middle East, the Americas, Eastern Europe, and the Francophonie. She was ambassador of Canada to Senegal and was also accredited to Cabo Verde, the Gambia, Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau. So just a little bit about our new board members. There's more information on the website, so I encourage you to go there to get to know our new board a little bit more. So now let's go to our, you could call it our flagship program, our AWE program, or Accelerating Women's Empowerment program. This is our program that we run in 21 countries, and it runs until 2008. AWE's mission, always good to go sort of back to the core, is to build capacity of partner organizations, to promote locally driven inclusive growth and sustainable development. And many of you have participated as advisors in our AWE program. So when we look at some key numbers on our AWE program, we've delivered over 1,400 assignments, which is amazing, especially considering we had to deal with COVID during this time. And we've supported over 500 partners so far. So great results in our AWE program. We've trained about 27,000 people, and about 60% of those people are women. And of course, AWE has a big focus on gender equality and women's economic empowerment, so that's aligned. A really interesting number here is that about 21,000 and growing additional people were trained by the original participants of our program. So we've trained 27,000 people. Those 27,000 have trained another 21,000. So it really speaks to the sustainability of our model. So now let's turn to some other results, some medium and long-term results, including increased access to resources. So important. So this is such as funding, staff, inputs, training, market information, things like that. also including new or strengthened linkages. So those are connections or partnerships, and we don't as often talk about that, but it's so important. So these are linkages with other businesses and organizations, government and financial institutions, national and international donors, etc. So these in turn have led to 77% of our partners reporting significant or highly significant impact on their organizations and communities that they serve. That's a big number. And 96% of our participants, the ones we've been able to survey so far, have reported an improvement in their economic and or social well-being. So this, again, is great results coming from our AWE program. So now let's have a look at our CCEDM program. So this is our Canada CARICOM Expert Deployment Mechanism. This is our regional program in the Caribbean, 9 countries, 3 regional hubs, and it's a demand-driven program designed to address national government's needs and priorities in the Caribbean. It began April 2020 and is about 5.5 years in length. So the goals of this program are 3. To strengthen and diversify local economies, build strong climate resilient communities, and reduce gender and economic inequalities. So how do we do this? We do this by focusing on 3 strategic priorities. So you can go to the next slide. And those priorities are strategy development, policy development, and implementation. All right, that implementation word, so important. Operational efficiency and effectiveness, and improved visibility. The types of partners we work with in this program can be anything from government ministries and agencies to parastatal entities, etc. And at this point, we've reached over 3,000 people in that program. Okay, so now let's turn to our program here in Canada, our Indigenous and Northern Services program. So there are quite a few programs running. So I'm going to touch on a few. And the first one I want to talk about is one that is co-funded by the Strategic Partnerships Initiatives. Those of you who worked in government, SPY was a big thing. So it's really kind of interesting that we've got funding from them. CanNor, or the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency, and the Government of Northwest Territories. So this project is called Enhancing Indigenous Participation in Major Remediation Projects in the Northwest Territories. So the focus is to expand skills development, right? It's workforce development, expand business capacity to participate in and benefit from remediation projects. The next one I want to talk about briefly is you could call it our flagship program on the Indigenous and Northern Services side, program funded by Indigenous Services Canada, or ISC. And it's our program that's purely focused on economic development capacity building. The other one I wanted to mention, which is probably new for most, it's a program that's funded by the National Research Council of Canada. And it is called Industrial Research Assistance Program, Strengthening Indigenous Innovation Through Mentorship. So this is an exciting program. And you can see we've got, we've broadened our base of funders for our work in Indigenous and Northern Services. Other funders, other programs that we have running are funded by Government of Nunavut, others by Government of Northwest Territories, Government of Alberta, and Agnico Eagle. So lots going on here. It's I will point out a challenge though. Our programs on the national side are shorter and smaller. So we have lots of little programs. If you compare to the size and the length of our programs on the international side. So there is real heavy administrative burden on this side. But of course, extremely important work. If anyone there has any pull with government to have bigger program, multi-year programs, it would just make such a difference on this side. Okay, let's talk a little bit about reconciliation and our reconciliation action plan and the work that we did. Gosh, I think it probably was about a year and a half or so of work that was released this past June. And it really is an articulation of a more focused commitment to the economic development work we've been doing for over 55 years in partnership with Indigenous peoples of Canada. The plan, our action plan, is driven by 3 values. The first is awareness. And this speaks to the fact that we're respectful of Indigenous peoples, their histories, and their culture, that we're aware of colonial policies designed to assimilate Indigenous peoples and work to remove their lasting legacy. The second speaks to inclusion. So we recognize that Indigenous peoples are self-determining peoples with unique cultures and distinct rights. Catalyste Plus is committed to working in collaboration with Indigenous partners in the design and delivery of our programs to ensure they respond to the distinct needs of our Indigenous clients. And the third pillar speaks to economic independence. We recognize that Indigenous peoples determine their own needs and priorities with regard to economic development, and that should resonate with how we run our business around the world. We will work closely with Indigenous communities, organizations, and people to support their economic development goals. So we will report on how we're doing against our goals of our reconciliation action plan, I believe in June. So we'll report on an annual basis our progress and the things we've been able to achieve. Okay. So now let's talk about what I'm going to call strategic initiatives. So this is work that we do that is outside either of our traditional funders or our traditional programs. And the reason we do this work is so we want to grow and we want to diversify, right? So we want to have smaller programs with new clients that we hope to grow to bigger things. We want to mitigate the risk of being too dependent on too few funders. And we want to grow, like the demand that is out there for the work that we do great exceeds the programs that we have to deliver. So we're always looking for ways to grow, to deliver on our mission. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this work because you might be approached to be an advisor on one of these initiatives. So it's really important to know that this is not consulting. It's mentorship, it's capacity building. It's the same as doing an assignment for all. It just happens to be a different funder. It's done on a cost recovery basis, which is the same as the rest of the work we do, our bigger programs. But the mechanism that we get it, the back office, is different. So the first one I want to touch on is with the Lundin Foundation. So that name might be familiar to some of you. It's a very reputable foundation, and it's we're working with them in Ecuador on a couple of projects. The first is on local government capacity building, so municipal governments, as well as Shuar Federation, which is an Indigenous group. So really interesting. Love it when we get those ties between our work with Indigenous in Canada and Indigenous internationally. The work there focuses on proposal development and management. And the second work is supporting women entrepreneurs. So there's a group who are part of a collective of businesses, a women-led collective that promotes economic development, empowerment, and visibility. So that's, again, a sample of the work that we do with the Lundin Foundation. The other example I wanted to give is to do with responsible business conduct abroad. So you can see at the bottom, this is the Government of Canada thing. So it's a different part of the Government of Canada that we're working with, where responsible business conduct lives. And the work we've done here has been at the request of Canadian missions abroad. So the three components of responsible business conduct, or RBC, not at all confusing because we have the Royal Bank of Canada, but this is responsible business conduct. The three components are building awareness and championing action, increasing the uptake of due diligence and accountability, and strengthening the global responsible business conduct ecosystem. So those are the components. The workshops that we've done, and we've done workshops so far in Brazil, in Mexico, and Cuba, have focused on enhancing company community relationships, emphasizing stakeholder engagement, working on conflict management, and social responsibility. So that's an exciting piece of work, and also speaks to our ability to work at that nexus of development and trade, which is fairly unique for an international development organization. It's pretty unique. So that's it sort of for strategic initiatives. So you guys might come across some of these. Again, you might be approached for some of these, but it's aligned with our vision, our mission. It's the same work, just again, the back office is slightly different. Okay, so now let's talk about recruitment, right? The core, the heart of our business is getting advisors like you out on assignment, doing the great work that you do. So it's mission critical that we have the skills and experience on the roster to deliver our program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where are we strong on the roster, in general, where we have some needs, and I'm even going to talk about a few specific assignments that are available, what we would call a bit challenging to recruit. So maybe you are interested and qualified for one of these. So let's talk about first our strengths, okay? So we have a strong supply of advisors in our core areas. So these are strategic planning, general management training, leadership training, business development, project management, business planning, right? And finance. So those are core. We always need a lot, and we have a lot. So we're sort of good there. What do we need? So in general categories, what we need are more advisors with experience in web development, in digital marketing, in gender equality, fundraising and resource development, and IT. So to be a bit flippant, as soon as we get these advisors on the shelf, they're off the shelf. There's high demand in these areas. So we're looking for more advisors with this type of background to bring to the table. So I said I would talk or share a few assignments. So when I knew I was doing the town hall and would have the opportunity to talk so many of our advisors today, I asked the recruitment team, listen, are there any assignments that you're having trouble recruiting for? Because I might as well let our advisors know they might be interested or someone they know might be interested. So I'm going to talk about three of them. The first one, it's an assignment in Suriname with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it's for a cybersecurity advisor. Again, cybersecurity advisor. They're looking for assistance in developing training and curriculum for their IT people. Okay, so that's Suriname cybersecurity advisor. The next one, actually there's two in this category, and they're looking for emergency management advisors. This is in both Honduras and Senegal. both within the tourism industry, and they're looking for assistance in developing comprehensive emergency plans. So again, emergency management advisor, one assignment in Honduras, one in Senegal. And the last one I wanted to bring to your attention, it's an assignment in Ethiopia. It requires a digital marketing advisor. It's working with the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce, which is quite exciting. And what they're looking for is assistance in providing training on digital marketing and trends, as well as helping them build their digital marketing strategy. So those are three opportunities that you might want to consider or refer a friend who has those skill sets. Now let's turn to talk a little bit about the most effective way to build our roster. And it's actually quite simple. Word of mouth is from our current advisors is our strongest tactic for roster growth. So you can see from this graph that I apologize, the pie chart numbers are reversed, but the majority, the 57%, are word of mouth. So they've been referred. These are advisors who've been referred by another advisor, and the 43% are from other methodologies. So if you take a sample of about, the numbers come from a sample of 120 CAs that have been added to the roster of this year, 57% were referred by an active CA. So that's great. We're going to continue to promote what we do through social media, newsletter, our Catalyst Plus clubs, and other forms of communication. But really important to know that refer a friend is our most effective way. You guys have the networks into the skills and experience that match our needs on the roster. So I want to thank those of you, or thank you for sharing your experience volunteering with colleagues, friends, family, because it's really contributing in a positive way to the growth of our roster and our ability to deliver on our commitments to support responsible and inclusive economic development. So now let's talk we're going to just go a little bit more into the nitty gritty of how to get an assignment, because I know it's a competitive process. We've got a lot going on and it's a competitive process. So what I want to do is give you sort of 3 tips for how to improve your chances of getting an assignment. They all relate to using our portal, the My Catalyst Plus portal, used to be the My Kesso portal. And this was a big piece of work that was done to try and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our recruitment process. So the 3 pieces of advice I have for you, the first one is to ensure in your profile, okay, go into your profile, that the correct roles have been assigned to your profile. Okay, you have access to this, you have control over this. You will be more accurate at doing that than anyone else, because you can only know so much from a resume, right? This helps match you to assignments. It helps recruiters find you. The second piece of advice I would have is keep your resume up to date, okay? An improvement with the My Catalyst Plus portal is that you can upload your resume now directly. So administratively, much, much easier. And the last piece of advice I would have is to go into the portal regularly and review the assignment opportunities that are available. Yeah, it just go in there. I don't know how often you'll maybe get a sense of it, but go in there regularly, because it's really great when you can let the recruitment team know you're interested in an assignment. So to support you, Our recruitment team is there. So if you do have questions, you need support, or you want to discuss an assignment of interest, our recruitment team is available. The other thing that they're going to do is, I'm getting my comments reversed. I apologize. One more piece of advice. Okay. When you would like to apply for an assignment, you draft a letter of application. Okay. Again, it's a competitive process. So what we really recommend is that you use the guidelines that we have. We have guidelines around creating that letter of application. You can find them in the My Catalyst Plus portal in the resource section. And so it's there for you to use and strengthen your application. Now let's go to the next slide, talk about effectiveness and efficiency of having advisors apply to assignments. So we sampled about 100 assignments, and to see how many were recruiter approached versus CA applied. And about 57%, or the majority, applied on their own rather than being approached. So more and more, we're encouraging that, again, to increase our efficiency and effectiveness. And to help with this, right, the recruitment team is going to be holding a training session on how to use the portal. It's going to be a bit later this fall. So it's going to be a refresher. So we've done this, but it's time for a refresher of all the features, and they're going to continue to be there to support you and help you being able to apply directly to assignments and be successful in landing an assignment. Okay, so now we are going to have a look forward. We're going to have a peek at our strategy for 2025 to 2030. And to start off, I want to touch on our current strategy. So if we go to the next slide, our current strategy, which ends 2025, we have 4 strategic pillars: positioning, growth, people, and agility. So just touching on each one very briefly. Positioning, right? This is where our rebrand fit, right? That huge piece of work, and as I've mentioned many times, has been really, really well received by our local clients and partners and our funders. Huge piece of work. Growth, right? We had huge growth in all. We got CCEDM. I talked about some of the program growth in Indigenous and Northern services and these strategic initiatives. People. So we're a very people-centric business, right? So it's important that we invest in our people. One thing we just were talking about is the My Catalyst Plus portal, right? That's to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness, but also to improve the user's experience. And lastly, agility. Great example there is how the organization had to turn on a dime with COVID to virtual delivery and then transition back again, which was also a challenge. That agility, that ability to move quickly enough to mitigate risk or to take advantage of a good opportunity. So these 4 things, you'll see how they tie into the strategy going forward. They continue to be very important. So when we start to look at the new strategy, maybe we can go to the next slide. What I wanted to do, to make sure everyone knows, we're starting from the same base, okay? Our vision and our mission are the same. We are stronger economies for better lives. Une économie plus solide pour une vie meilleure. Our mission is the same. We might tweak with the words, but it's the same. We're about economic development, strengthening the local organizations, competencies in our program countries and communities for sustainable economic independence. That is who we are. That is not changing. If we go to the next slide, what I thought was important this time around is to better articulate our approach to capacity building. A little bit more on what are we doing and why. So this diagram, I love this diagram because it breaks it down into sort of 3 areas of focus that link together when we do our capacity building. And you, as you can think back to your assignments or ones coming up, you maybe see how that work fits either at the individual organization or system level. You know, are you working with individuals on their skills, their knowledge, their behaviors? Are you working with an organization on their culture, on their leadership, on their management processes or structures? Are you working at a systemic level around governance or financing, something like that? So this diagram, I think, is very, very helpful. I also came across a definition that the United Nations uses to describe capacity strengthening that I really liked. And it is the process of developing and strengthening the skills, instincts, abilities, processes, and resources that organizations and communities need to survive, adapt, and thrive in a fast-changing world. You know, I think this is important for us to be clear about the why and the how. The next section I want to go to is, you can see this diagram with the 2 arrows. What is this getting at? We do a lot of work in a lot of different sectors, dependent on a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different geographies with a lot of different types of partners. But what we can do is organize what we do into these 2 areas, right? The first is good governance and institutional strengthening. And the second is micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise development or private sector development. So I also wanted our strategy to articulate this a bit better. And honestly, in our communications and marketing, to be more clear. So if you want to talk in 30 seconds to describe what we do, it's these 2 buckets of work. The first, good governance and institutional strengthening, right? What we're doing is we're working with those trade associations, chambers of commerce, different levels of government, local civil society to build their ability to better fulfill their mandate, right? It's a country-specific approach. We want to help them establish a transparent and accountable policy and regulatory framework. We want it to be conducive to private sector development. We want it to improve tax and fiscal management. We want it to foster participatory development. All of these great things. We want it to be an environment that attracts investment. So the second side of it is the micro, small, medium-sized enterprise development, or that private sector development, right? I often say this is the engine of economic growth, and it's the engine of economic growth of any economy. So it's very important to create the conditions for a dynamic and competitive private sector. And what I love when I think about this aspect of our work is the multiplier, what I think of as the multiplier effect, right? We talked about the number of people we trained right? But then the number of people that they train, that sort of multiplier effect. So when you look at MSME development, and you look at the impact from an individual, community, or national level, at the individual and community, if you increase prosperity, right, you increase investments in health, in education, and at the national level, a stronger, more vibrant, resilient private sector should lead to increased tax revenues that the government can then use to invest in social and economic programs that benefit all citizens. So those are our two main areas of work, regardless of sector, skill, geography. It's those two things. So when you put the capacity building approach, good governance and institutional strengthening, private sector development, or SME development, you cover a lot of ground at a high level of what we do together. So now let's turn to what the pillars are for our strategy starting in 2025. So again, a 5-year strategy, 4 pillars: deepen localization, grow programs, diversify funders, and expand perceptions and engagement. And I have a feeling, based on our conversation today, none of these are a surprise. Okay, this is not a pivot to a new direction. This is tweaking an already robust strategy and tactical execution. Just a few comments on the pillars. I will do another town hall in the spring, and we can talk about the strategy in a bit more detail then. When we talk about localization, you might sort of wonder why. We're already really strong, like our whole program. Everything we do is focused on local capacity building. It's a partner-led approach, needs-driven, etc. But we're always looking for ways to improve. The world is changing. And are there things that we can do differently? One thing we can do differently is communicate Catalyste Plus role in good, strong localization. Okay, so we can help. We're an ally, a support. We can accompany our local clients and partners as the transition of responsibility of direct program implementation and management goes to the local level. What am I talking about? Sometimes to pay proper respect to localization, funders give money directly to a local organization, which is great, unless they don't have the skills, abilities, and experience to effectively manage and deliver that program. That's where we can come in. We can accompany that local client, local partner, help them build those skills and ability so that they can be successful in that execution. So it's that sort of thing I'm talking about with localization, just to think in little bit different terms. Our grow programs and diversify funders, we've talked about this, that growth, it's because demand exceeds supply. Demand for our services exceeds what we're able to deliver with our current program funding. So to deliver on our mission, we need to grow our programs. The diversification of funders, we also talked about in terms of mitigating risk. So again, it feeds into the growth. So it's a tactic to get growth, but then it's also to mitigate risk. Expand perceptions and engagement sort of ties to that way of thinking about localization and our role, right? But it also speaks to maybe expanding public perception, and not everywhere. It's variable, right? Some people know us super well and nothing needs to be clarified. Others know us less well. And we really want to highlight our work in governance as well as SME development. Are the roles we can play in localization, as I mentioned, and sectoral or skill-based information packages. So it's not based on, okay, we do CCDM, we do Indigenous Northern Services from a skill set or sectoral perspective. So just to bring that up a level, not easy, but that is what our goal is. And, it makes me a bit sad to say, but in a few corners, there's still a few people out there that think of us as a mechanism for volunteering. And that doesn't do us justice on any level. Once you know the serious development work that is done. Maybe my last note, kind of just in terms of, thinking about our organization and the future. And I guess I think about it in terms of the responsibility we have as Catalyste Plus and the importance for all of us, staff, advisor, everybody, to have a high standard of intercultural capability. So we have good training, okay? What I have asked staff to do is to review and see if we can improve the training at all. What can we do to improve it? Because with the type of work that we do, we have a lot of responsibility in terms of intercultural capability. And I would like to know without a shadow of a doubt that we have, as an organization, fulfilled our responsibility to making sure you, advisors, staff, everybody has the information that they need in order to respect what's needed to perform well in terms of intercultural capability. And when I feel comfortable that we've achieved that, it's very important that going forward, and not that we're lax now, but going forward, that we have a zero tolerance policy for aberrations when it comes to intercultural capability. Again, we have a ton of responsibility given the role we play, what we do, and there's no room for error. So we want to set everybody up for success and then make it clear what our expectations are. Okay, so I am going to, I talk too much. I'm going to stop now and I'm going to open up the Q&A. And let's have a look at what questions we have so far. Yeah, okay, let's just start. Someone said, can you speak to the significant reduction in new assignments, especially in Latin America, that it's due to a funding reduction? Okay, so let's talk about that. Right, our 21 country program was a 7-year program. At the request of GAC, it has become an 8-year program. So that means same amount of funding now needs to cover 8 years versus 7 years. So it has resulted in a reduction of assignments. So this is very upsetting to me because we didn't need this. They call it a no cost extension. Anyway, yes. So what you're seeing is not just in Latin America. Devin, do I see that you might like to jump in? Maybe not. Okay. No, just jump in if you want to jump in. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is a good one. Fairly new to Catalyste Plus, does the portal have a notification system that we can initiate so that we are emailed when a new project is listed? So I believe so. Maybe I can ask Natalia to confirm.
Sure, Wendy. Yes, there is a notification system, and this is why it is important to update the roles in your profile, as Wendy just mentioned, and make sure that you click the option to receive notifications on your email. That's an option, so just make sure that it's on so that you receive any notification.
Perfect. Thank you, Natalia.
You're welcome.
Then we have a question. Is South Africa one of our focus countries? We are not currently running programs in South Africa. Doesn't mean if we didn't find a funder that we couldn't, but it's not one of our current program countries. Okay. So then I have one. Do we allow trailing spouses? I'm assuming that means, do we allow spouses to join you on assignment? I'm going to try and answer, and then Natalia, I'm going to ask you to help me out. We cannot pay for a spouse to accompany you on assignment. But I don't believe they can't come. But Natalia, am I missing something there?
So we do allow bringing the spouse with you to your trip, let's say. But as Wendy said, we don't cover any expenses related to your spouse, and your spouse cannot participate in the assignment itself.
Very important. Yes, exactly. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Natalia. That's
You're welcome.
great. This one I'm going to have to ask for help, I think, from Devin. Is there a Catalyst Plus group in Halifax? I know we've had a bunch of new ones come on board. I just don't know if Halifax is one of them.
Good question. I cannot remember if there is an active one there, but I believe I did see interest from that come in.
Great, great. Okay. And it would be in our latest newsletter, the list of clubs.
That's correct.
There you go. So go to your latest newsletter and that'll give you all the clubs. And if we don't have one in Halifax, maybe it's time to start. And these are advisor initiated initiatives. Okay. What new initiatives are being planned for post CCEDM and awe? So what I can say is that we have a full pipeline of proposals in with various funders to continue the great work that's being done on these and our other programs. Okay, let me. Okay, so this is interesting. There's a couple of good ones here. Okay, I'm going to go to, as a very new advisor, I asked what training opportunities are available. For example, can a new advisor shadow an experienced one on mandate? So this is an important thing to talk about with your, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, Natalia, that it's you talk to your recruiter about this. And they will set you up with people that you can talk to who have either, so other advisors who've worked on that client, et cetera, to help you prepare for your assignment. It does ask if you can shadow an experienced one on mandate. I assume you mean go to the field, and we couldn't pay for that. That wouldn't be covered under our program, but you can certainly talk to other advisors who've done similar assignments or with the same client. Okay. So let me just scroll down a bit. Okay, you mentioned no room for error with cross-cultural expectations. Does that imply a greater focus on cross-cultural awareness and communications for assigned VAs? Yes, yes, that is correct. So we're reviewing our training and strengthening it where needed. And this is exactly cross-cultural awareness and communications. Yep, exactly. Okay. Oh my gosh, there's so many good questions. Okay. Oh, there's so many good ones. Okay, so let me just try and do a few quick. Someone's read the guidelines for letter of application, but where could I find more specifics? Example, do clients like to hear what steps and methodologies would be used, or do they tend to prefer a more free-form description, or does it depend on the partner or country serving? I would refer to your, I would contact recruitment, but I would imagine that that is a little bit too detailed for a letter of application. Maybe I can see if Natalia has, you're fresh from that role in recruitment. Would
Yes.
that be too detailed?
Yeah, that would be too detailed at that point. I think the most important thing is to correctly link your experience with the assignment descriptions and explain how you can fulfill the assignment objectives.
Great, great. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank
Okay, one asks for more information on the CCEDM program. I would refer you to our website for that. Start there. Can we see assignment options before interviewing and being accepted into the volunteer pool? You only have access to the portal once you are accepted on our roster. But I think you can get a really good idea of the types of assignments by going to our website. There's a lot of information on different types of assignments that will help you figure out if it's a match. Also, the recruitment process or the application process, you're going to be talking to different people, being interviewed by different people to get on the roster, and that's something you can talk to them about as well. Okay. This is a good one. We know that we will probably have an upcoming government that has said numerous times that international development funding will be cut. How does Catalyste Plus prepare for this eventuality? Oh boy. Yeah, so you're right. We are prepared for a change in government. I think the important thing to know is that with any government, there's a risk. Okay. And so that's partly why our strategy on growth and diversification, we want to make sure that we have, we can mitigate that risk. What I will do is point to the last, like currently we have a liberal government, the last conservative government. We as an organization fared very well and actually grew significantly during that administration because our focus on economic-based development really resonated. Yeah, it certainly is more uncertainty, but that's high on our radar, and you know, we're as well positioned as we can be, and working hard to make sure the right people know the work we do, so we mitigate any risk. Okay, is the program in Macedonia going to be extended? For how long? Yes, it's going to be extended. Don't hold me to this. I think it's another 3 years. Another interested in Halifax. How can we start one? Maybe I will, I don't know what to do with that, whether who they could get in touch with. Maybe you could email our communications department and ask that question, and then we'll figure out the best person for you to talk to. Oh, here someone says Halifax is not active. We're in the process of starting many across Canada. I love to hear that. Let me. Okay. Okay. So someone says Global Brigades is an international organization that does development work, allowing university students on week-long assignments. Partnering them could expand future volunteers. I'm not familiar with this organization, but you could, again, send an email to the communications department with their information. If you do have a contact person there, that would be helpful as well, and we can look into that. Okay, can we mention the countries in Africa that we run our projects? Okay, so we are in East and West Africa, starting in West Africa, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo. We were in Burkina Faso, but that's on hold right now. Then East Africa, or then Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. Okay. Actually starts work abroad. Okay. Aha, thank you, Jennifer Rovette. CA's, so she's our head of manager of recruitment, and have folks in Halifax who are interested in creating a club, please email Jennifer and she will help you out. Thank you, Jen. Just scrolling through, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Someone says they've completed several instructional design advisor assignments, but when you look at the portal, this position is not listed under the roles. If you could get in touch with your program manager, if you don't know who that is, then go to the person you're dealing with in volunteer services, and that request should go through them, right? It needs to be assessed whether we add that role of design advisor. We've got someone with a portal question. I would refer you to the recruitment team. Okay. This is a good one. Are there current assignments on the portal for the responsible business conduct abroad? No, there isn't, but there are some coming up. So I've just lost your name. If this person can email Andre Xavier, so AXIER @catalystplus.org. He's the person to talk to about RBC. Okay, then there's last question. Sorry, guys. There's so many good ones here. How long do partners have to tell us if they make a decision on who they selected for an assignment? Asking for a friend. We've got some interesting stats on that, and I wish I had them at my fingertips. The vast majority make that decision in a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't always happen, though. Our clients sometimes are really taken up with multiple priorities, and so there are delays. What I would encourage, you're asking for a friend, to get in touch with the recruiter just to ask for a status, and they'll get back to you. Okay. Oh, there's so many good questions. One on sustainability, climate change. Yes, of course. Okay. Okay, last one. I haven't seen much recently in terms of education and training institutions. No requests emerging. There will be. We partner with local training institutions and educational institutions all the time. So just keep your and I know who is asking this. It's good to see you on the chat. Yeah, keep looking, and hopefully we'll get you out on assignment soon. Okay, so at the risk of having missed a really good question, and we'll take a look at them all and Make sure if there's anything critical in there. I think there was one about insurance. If you could just contact, because I know that's a tricky one. If you could send an email to, I'm going to say Gail Lee on that one. So GLEE at catalystplus.org. She can put the wheels in motion to answer that question. Okay. That was a super fun hour. I wish we had two. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. Thank you so much for your great questions. And above anything else, thank you so much for your commitment to the work we do and for your dedication and the impact that you have on our clients around the world. Thank you very much. I look forward to doing this again in a few months. Bye-bye.